Hello, I'm Lucy from In the Midst of Madness, and today I thought I would finally give you an update. I've been meaning to do this for like 4 or 5 months, and just things keep getting in the way, and I keep forgetting or thinking, oh, I'll do it after this next thing because then everything will make more sense, and then it doesn't. And so I'm here now, finally. I've been meant to do this every day this week, and haven't. And it's now like 11:15 at night. But I'm here. Hello. So first of all, thank you so much to everyone who watched my last video, and who came out and supported me. That was so lovely. I knew you'd all be supportive, but it was really nice to receive support. At some point I will try and kind of go into, I guess, sort of more detail, different detail about what happened with my last therapist, because the whole content of that video wasn't sort of everything that happened, but that was kind of the big thing that meant that I didn't vlog for all this length of time. And I was really hoping that that was going to boost my confidence, and it did, but I then had all sorts of health problems, which was why I did that video, because I really wanted to reclaim this space and be able to talk about things, and then promptly lost momentum, and now we're months later. I don't even know when I posted that. I think it was in November, but yeah, we're months later and I haven't said anything or done anything, but I wanted to share now, and kind of explain sort of where I've been and why, at least part of why I've been gone. So I'm not going to talk about therapy today. That's for the future sometime maybe. But yeah, basically I've had all sorts of health problems, none of which are serious. Like, there's nothing to worry about, but it's just been a lot to try and kind of deal with. And on top of the fact that I live with health problems every day anyway, because I'm chronically ill, it's just been an awful lot extra to try and handle. And so yeah, I'm afraid my memory's not great, which is one of the symptoms that I'm experiencing. So I don't know how good this will be, and like, my concentration isn't very good either, so I'm really sorry if this kind of comes and goes with making any kind of sense, and I may have to kind of keep adding bits in as I remember them. As you know, these things aren't scripted. My last video was scripted and I found that incredibly challenging, and it doesn't suit me. And so yeah, these things are just off the cuff, so literally I've come to the camera with the topic of telling you about my health, but there's like 18 months worth to catch you up on. So I'll try and do this in order. I'll try and make sense. I will now stop waffling. So in August 2022 I started getting some kind of weird sinus symptoms. I'd had no viruses or anything like that, but I started getting like twinging in my ear, and I think I was getting like weird sensation across here. I don't even remember, it's so long ago I don't even remember, but basically I eventually went to the doctors and saw a nurse there, and I was given a nasal spray to try and sort out whatever it was that was going on in my nose at the time. And I was also getting like tingling in what felt like in my jaw, and I got really concerned about this over a few months, so I tried various decongestants, nasal sprays and tablets, and they didn't really do anything, and I hadn't been to the dentist for I think 8.5 years at this point because of my agoraphobia. And I was concerned enough that I thought maybe this is my teeth, so I finally went to the dentist in October 2022, and found out that that wasn't what was causing any of my symptoms, but that my teeth were not in a great state, and that I was pretty close to getting gum disease, which I may talk about in the future. It's been quite difficult because like, it's my own fault. Like I wasn't looking after my teeth properly. I have a lot of like sensory issues, and so anything that hurts or feels funny or tastes funny or anything like that I find really, really difficult. And so yeah, things like flossing just was not happening because I hate it. And that builds up into problems, especially when you're not going to the dentist for over 8 years. So thankfully there weren't any like major problems, but I needed to change what I was doing. So I started flossing every day, and brushing my teeth more thoroughly, and got an electric toothbrush, and that was all starting to go in a good direction, but my symptoms weren't going. So I was referred to an ear, nose and throat specialist, and I was told it was a 20-week wait, but it turned into, I think, 55. So I wasn't seen until November last year, so a year and a month after I'd been referred. And my symptoms have sort of come and gone, and I've had postnasal drip, and just all these weird feelings in places in my face that I can't normally feel. So they're quite distracting, they're quite disruptive. I don't feel terrible. When I first got all of this, I was getting migraines, and I started getting migraines with auras again. I also got COVID for the first and only time in November 2022. So it really was all coming at once, and it was all quite overwhelming. Anyway, I put up with all of this while I was on the waiting list, and then probably, I think, May last year, I started getting discomfort in my neck, in the back, and it just felt really crunchy, like in my spine. And it felt like it needed to click, and it wouldn't click, and it just felt completely wrong. And I'd been seeing an osteopath who was trying to sort out my sinuses, and that wasn't working. She tried to sort out my neck, and that wasn't working, though she did say I was like seizing up a lot, but what she was doing wasn't making a difference, and painkillers weren't making a difference. So after a few months of this, I sort of realised this isn't great, and it's not going away. Because of my health anxiety, I tried very hard to not focus on my symptoms, because I just sort of end up down a rabbit hole very quickly. I'm very panicked and stressed and fixated, and then I go on Google and I find out I'm probably dying of something, or multiple somethings usually, and none of that's very good. So I eventually, I track some of my symptoms so that I can track stuff over time, and I added the neck thing to my symptom tracker, and I realised like this has been months. So in October 2023, so last October, I finally decided I needed to find out what's going on, and I phoned my GP surgery and spoke to a nurse practitioner, and she said, okay, well we're going to need to do bloods. And I'm phobic of needles, but I had realised I was going to have blood tests, because I'd looked up what this might be. What I hadn't found out was that it might be arthritis. So when she suggested this on the phone, I kind of panicked, because arthritis doesn't go away, and I have a lot of conditions already, and I really didn't want anything new. Not that you get to choose, but I didn't want something that wasn't going to go away. So I kind of freaked out about that. I don't have arthritis. Anyway, I had to have blood tests, and I got a whole load of other tests added on because I have all sorts of other symptoms. And I've been meaning to get my B12 checked for years, because a lot of my conditions overlap symptom-wise with B12 deficiency. And in the UK, for whatever reason, we do not standard test for this. You have to ask for it, and you have to have symptoms, and you have to have reasons to test for it. Anyway, went to see her, and she sort of had a poke about, and she was like, I can't sort of see anything wrong with your neck, so we'll send you to physio, and see what they say. So I got my blood test results back, and actually my B12 was low, and my folate was low as well. And so I then had to have another test to check sort of part of why this might be. It turns out there's been a whole debacle with all of this, because there's a whole load of tests that I should have had that I haven't had, and because I've now been treated for B12 deficiency, it's much more difficult to get accurate results for those tests. So we don't know if I have pernicious anemia, we don't know if I have celiac disease. I was told I needed to have a celiac disease test, and I follow a low FODMAP diet, which includes not eating gluten a lot of the time. So I said, like, well, how long do I have to eat gluten for in order for this test to be accurate? And she said, oh, I don't know, probably about 5 days. And something sort of twigged in my brain, and I had a memory, and I was like, are you sure about that? Because I suddenly remembered that one of my friends had had a gluten test, and she's gluten-free as well, and she's had to have gluten twice a day for 6 weeks before she could have this test. So I said this to her, and she was like, oh, well, I'll check, but that seems like a very long time. Anyway, transpires, yeah, you have to do it for 6 weeks. And by this point, this was already January, so for 3 months I'd been deficient, no treatment, and I was starting to get horrible symptoms. So I was getting really bad brain fog, I was getting memory loss, poor concentration, I've had tingling in my outside fingers, and numbness, like all the way down here. It's like when you lean on something hard and it kind of traps a nerve. It's that sensation, but I'm not leaning on anything. And it comes and goes, but it keeps happening, and it's really annoying. And yeah, I've been increasingly tired. So I was really keen to just get on with being treated because I feel rubbish. And because we don't know if I've got pernicious anemia or not, it made most sense to put me on injections, but they flat out refused. So I got put on supplements in January, and then I was retested in April. And my folate had gone through the roof, so I'm back off that, and my B12 had gone up, but my symptoms hadn't changed, and if anything they'd got worse. So I said this, and they said, well, your B12 is normal, so we're not treating you anymore. And they said that they would refer me to neurology, and what they said was that that's a 40-week wait, but that because I've got these symptoms I might get seen earlier. I've since found out it's a 70-week wait, and as far as I can tell, I think I've been triaged as routine, so I probably won't be seen for 70 weeks. I did kick up quite a fuss because there have been all sorts of problems. So like at one point she was trying to prescribe me vitamin D, and the only reason that didn't get put through was because I questioned it and said, hang on a minute, it's a B12 deficiency. So I got that sorted out. There have been loads of missed phone calls where they are meant to phone me and they just don't. The test I had to have to check my B12 deficiency was something called it's an MMA test. I think it's methylmalonic acid, and basically if that's really high and your kidneys are all right, then it means that your B12 is not being like processed by your body, I think. I'm kind of becoming a bit of an expert in B12 deficiency, because I kind of need to be, because I keep having to advocate for myself. Anyway, that took over 2 months to come back. So I'd had that test in October, like the week after my first blood test, or maybe 2 weeks after, and it didn't come back till January. So everything was just getting incredibly slow, and I was just feeling increasingly rubbish. In November, I saw, sorry, this is all over the place. This is why I've not known when to do a video, because I've just had all these things that are coming up where I think, oh, well, I'll tell you all then. And then another thing happens, and I keep thinking I know where the end is, and then the end gets pushed further and further and further away, and there's no end in sight now. So I just thought I'd do this today. So in November I saw 2 people. I saw the ENT specialist, and he said that I have eustachian tube dysfunction, which apparently is chronic, so that will just sort of keep coming and going. He gave me a nasal spray which didn't do anything at all, but he's told me I can have different ones, and my symptoms randomly stopped a few months ago, and they've started up again now, but they're not too bad at the minute, so I'm just sort of keeping an eye on it. But I can go back to my GP apparently for stronger steroid sprays now that I've seen him. He said that whatever it is that's going on in my jaw is nothing to do with my sinuses. My dentist has said it's nothing to do with my teeth. She thinks it might be my facial nerves. But it isn't pain, it's just discomfort and weird feeling. And it moves and it goes. So I've got no idea, but having now experienced that for on and off for 18 months, I have at least calmed down about it. so I'm not especially bothered about it being investigated, because I'd have to go private with a dentist and that would cost a fortune, and they're probably going to tell me they can't do anything. So I'm just trying to leave that alone. Oddly, the ENT specialist said that I have eczema in my ears, which would explain why I have issues with earwax and getting ear infections. So he said that's likely to be chronic, and he confirmed a diagnosis that I got when I was a child, which is that I have allergic rhinitis. So that was kind of all helpful, but I was literally in there 15 minutes and I'd waited over a year. And it's just been a very weird experience over the last couple of years, trying to kind of deal with a health service that is so very clearly, visibly crumbling. Anyway, I also saw the physio, and it was really odd because it was at my GP surgery, but he was very holistic and very much viewed me as a whole person and was asking about like kind of what was going on in my life, and like the doctors don't do that. It's very much like, what's wrong with your knee? Don't tell me anything else about your life. And not that there's anything wrong with my knee, that was just an example. But yeah, he wasn't just focused on my neck, he wanted to know all about me. And so it was quite odd because when I sat down, I tried to sort of explain like why I was there and some of the stuff that I know about. And he said, when you walked across the waiting room, I clocked that you were hypermobile, which I still don't understand what he meant. I know what hypermobile is. I knew that I was hypermobile. I've known that my whole life because I used to dance, and I come from a hypermobile family, and my mum and my aunt are both ballet teachers, and so they know hypermobility. So I know that my knees and my elbows overextend, etc. I can put myself in weird pretzel shapes that I'm not allowed to put myself in. Anyway, he was also looking at whether I have another condition, which I don't actually know how to properly pronounce, but I think it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's abbreviated to EDS, and there are, I think, 11 types, 10 of which can be checked for with a blood test, and the one that I might have, which is hypermobile EDS, can't be checked with a blood test. There isn't a test for that currently. And he tried to do the sort of manoeuvre tests for it, and basically he doesn't know if I have it. So he has referred me to a rheumatologist, but he basically said that the discomfort in my neck, the reason the osteopath couldn't help, the reason the painkillers don't work, is because I'm hypermobile. So it's not a tissue problem, it's the connections. I'm explaining this incredibly badly, but basically it's not like my muscles, it's the actual joints, and basically I can bend my head back way too far, to the point where it looks like I have an Adam's apple. It's a bit gross actually. I didn't realise I looked like that, because when you look in the mirror you can't see it, but he took these photos of me like front on and side on, and oh, it's really grim. It looks like my neck's broken. And I also have back problems, so I mentioned those, and I also mentioned the problems with my, so actually I lied, I do have problems with my knees. It's just I've had them for years, so I don't notice them. I don't think of myself as having knee problems, and I thought that was from using a wheelchair while I was growing, when I had severe ME, but it actually looks like it probably is a hypermobility thing, and basically all of my connective tissue is sort of overstretchy, and it means that I don't have stability in my joints. It means that everything moves like it's not meant to, and like I won't do a freak show here, but yeah, it means I can do all sorts of weird things, but it also means it's probably contributing to my fatigue, and it means I'm in pain quite a lot of the time. And I mean, just this week I've had pain in this joint, and in both thumbs. My thumbs are very seized up, and inflamed, and I don't know why. I don't know what's caused it, and that's just this week. I have the continuing neck and back problems. My knees are better than they were. I'm trying to walk more, So I think they're getting a bit more stability. But it's just been a lot. And like I just keep having to like fight for stuff. And so like with the B12, they were then refusing to treat me, and because I kicked up quite such a fuss about how unhappy I was about not being given the injections, the nurse thankfully offered to contact haematology to ask for advice about how to treat me. And thankfully they got back to her really, really quickly, and I had absolutely assumed nothing will happen, they won't help. They won't do anything. They'll just say, wait for neurology in 70 weeks. And thankfully they got back to her and said, like, you can't rule out a B12 deficiency based on what they've done. So treat her as if she's got B12 deficiency and give her the injections. So I was, honestly, when I found out last week, it was genuinely like Christmas had come. Because I'm so concerned about some of these symptoms, and I just want to be trying something to at least find out if that helps, because if it doesn't, then we know that it's not B12 that's causing this. And if it does, then like I get to feel better, which would be so welcome. So I started the injections on Monday, so I had one Monday and Wednesday, I've got another one tomorrow, and then I've got 2 next week and 1 the following week. So those are my loading doses, and then I will be having them 3 monthly for a year, and then I will be reviewed when I'm sure they will try and take me off them again. But at least by then I will know whether my symptoms have improved at all, which I'm so trying not to get my hopes up, but my hopes are definitely up. Like the last 4 days, I felt so rubbish. Like I fell asleep earlier before dinner, I fell asleep on Tuesday before dinner. I just feel like I'm thinking through a fog. Everything is so difficult to concentrate on. Like, I know it probably seems like I'm remembering stuff, but like there is so much stuff that I know I've left out and that I've done in the wrong order just doing this, and that's not like me at all. Like, I have a very, very strong memory, and it's really letting me down, and like I'm forgetting conversations, I can't keep up with like TV dramas. I'm just really, really struggling, and I think the thing that really bothers me is that I don't feel like myself. Like, my memory is such a huge part of sort of who I am and how I function, and I don't feel like myself at the moment, and I'm very pleased that I started the injections this week, because having these symptoms with no hope of getting better was starting to feel very, very scary, because it's impacting so much of like what I do. Even though I can't do very much, it's impacting the few things that I do. So yeah, I'm kind of in this, it's been this kind of perpetual limbo, which, like I say, is why I haven't been vlogging, because I find it easier to either do stuff from the beginning and then update through, or to do it at the end and say what happened. And I kept thinking I was getting to the end and that I could then say what happened, and then all these other things kept getting added in. But yeah, at some point I'm hoping to share a blog about kind of what it's like trying to get healthcare when you're chronically ill. And I've written sort of most of a post, but it's not a whole post, and I'm not really sure how to turn it into one yet. But it is mostly saying about sort of how difficult it is to be a patient when there's multiple things wrong with you. Because, like I say, you're expected to go and talk about this isolated issue, but there's so many other things wrong with me. And I mean, just things like the fact that I was born hypermobile. No health professional has ever noticed, and I completely understand why they haven't noticed, but it means they haven't joined the dots with all of the other conditions I have that are super, super common with hypermobility. Like, all of the conditions that I have are highly comorbid with each other, and that's a really useful tool for like clinicians, because they can then go, oh, hang on, if she's got this, this and this, she might have this as well. And so then when I go with symptoms, rather than them just going, that's a lot of symptoms for someone in their 30s, they can go, well, yeah, but that's because she's got these systemic issues, like my joints don't stay where they're meant to stay. And I think it's never been noticed because I've never dislocated anything. But part of that's because I'm so risk averse. So I'm sure if I'd been running around and climbing trees and riding horses, I'd have ended up in hospital with things. But I haven't. I used to sprain ankles all the time at dancing, but that never required going to the doctors. And so no one ever knew. But it means it's never been picked up on, and it means I've never been taught the exercises I need to try and stabilise my joints. But I've got to do that before I get older, or I'm going to end up having serious accidents and injuries because I'll start to have falls. And it's just those sorts of things where it's like, if you know about what's wrong, you can do stuff to kind of mitigate it, and to try and get used to it. And like, I'm part of all sorts of communities online with people who have similar conditions to me, or the same conditions as me, and that's how I've learned to join the dots with a lot of the things, and is why I asked to be referred to a specialist so that I can be actually diagnosed with hypermobility and to find out if I have EDS, because there are all sorts of things that can impact. Like, that can impact how anaesthetic works on you. And I've only ever had local anaesthetic, and that I'm completely normal with, but I don't know about general because I've never had it. And it's not just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not just innocuous, not knowing. Like, it actually has some really big impacts. And trying to advocate for yourself is just exhausting, because you so quickly feel like you're just this massive problem patient, and I am so worried about being viewed negatively at my doctor's surgery, or them flagging me as a hypochondriac or someone that's going to cause problems, and them then rationing my care. And like, I hardly went, well, I basically didn't go to the doctors for the first like 8 years of being off sick. Like, I went to be signed off sick, and they were treating me for the anxiety disorders. Then I was referred to the community mental health team and got a psychiatrist, and I've basically been for nothing other than cervical screenings since, and COVID jabs. That was literally it for like 8 years, possibly longer. So it's not like I've constantly been knocking on their door. But now it feels like there's so many sort of different things wrong with me, and I'm sure they're joined up, but because no one looks at you as a whole, they don't realise the things that are joined up, and there's just these huge long waiting lists. So yeah, sorry, I've just splurged, but hopefully that kind of explains where I've been, why I've been gone, why I've kind of not been able to get this mess out of my head. I don't feel like I've got the mess out of my head very clearly anyway. But hopefully it will at least make it easier to sort of update now. And yeah, I'm hoping to be back with sort of more just kind of mental health content, because that's obviously where my passion lies. So yeah, I hope this has been alright and not too terribly boring. I do feel like I'm having to become an expert in all these health things, which I don't think I'm doing very well at all, but never mind. But it's nice to be back, and I'm sorry I don't look great. Like I say, I've not been feeling great, and this is not nice lighting. But I will endeavour to be back soon, either in writing or in video form, or both. You never know, a miracle might happen. But thank you ever so much for watching, and do let me know what you think in the comments, and say hi and stuff like that. So yeah, I will hopefully be back soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!